Westminster Public Schools was part of his DNA.
It was public education that enabled a young Robert Landgraf to grow from a child of limited means into a very successful businessman who voters elected twice to the Board of Education. The first time in 1977 for 2 terms, and then again in 2011.
His legacy here in the school district is long-lasting, and at the end of the day, when all things are said and done, great memories, great impact, great legacy. What more could you ask in a great life?
Everybody's doing a brand new dance now. Come on, baby, do the locomotion. I know you.
As a high school student who graduated in 1962, Bob made his first mark as a standout athlete. In fact, sports would always be a big part of his life. Academics were tougher for him.
Mr. Landgraf was a product of public education. He had one teacher, I think, who pulled him over the finish line at Westminster High School, and he never forgot that.
Bob married his high school sweetheart, Vicki, fathered 2 boys, Bobby Jr. and Scott, and in 1972 opened Landgraf Plumbing and Heating.
If I could describe him in one word, I think loyal. Loyal no matter what. Loyal to his family, loyal to his business, loyal to his employees.
He became a loving, devoted grandfather and lived a wonderful life that he never took for granted. He loved to share stories with Veronica Gleaton, executive assistant to the board.
Bob was the early bird for all the board meetings, so we got a lot of one-on-one time. He'd tell me about his family, his grandkids, how proud he was of all the stuff that they were doing. Talked a lot about his wife, both of when they were young and getting started. Talked about how he went to night school, things like that. So he told me I loved hearing his stories.
And never far from his mind was his responsibility to the next generation.
With some of the stories he would tell me about when he grew up with his mom and how hard his mom worked, he knows that a lot of our families, are now working just as hard as his family did and how hard he did. And so I think that was his way of giving back.
And he spoke about individual teachers, coaches, how they helped them and very often, gave them a kick in the rear, so to speak.
It was during his first stint on the board, Bob became friends with Martin Semple, whose law firm would come to represent the majority of the school districts in Colorado. From early on, Bob made his priorities clear.
We'd be doing this, and he'd say, well, I just want to make sure that the kind of experience I had and what it did for me in my life, that, we're doing at least as well and probably even better for the students that we have right now.
The education he received, the friendships he made, helped him to build the career that he built.
And in spite of that successful career, in 2011, Bob realized his work wasn't done yet. With district test scores falling, morale dropping, and public confidence eroding, Bob stepped up once again.
He couldn't sit on the sidelines any longer and watch.
He felt it was something that he needed to do.
And he said, Pam, if I can help, he said, I'll run again. And I said, well, I wish you would, because we can use your kind of guidance, your wisdom, and your help. And he did. He won. And, I'm very, very grateful to this day.
A struggling district found stability.
And one person said, well, if this is good enough for Bob Landgraf, it's good enough for me. People really saw him as straightforward, having a lot of integrity, and he was a person who just wasn't going to steer them wrong.
He was very, very warm and funny, and you learned a lot from him, but it was never intimidating or anything.
One of the things that I learned from Bob was that he was, sometimes you just sit back and listen and let people have their moment and ultimately work to get to the bigger truth.
Friends and family say the idea of naming a building after Bob would probably make him groan. But then this isn't just any building.
We're always trying to improve our craft. This will be a fabulous place to do that. And you're never done in terms of your learning and your training and education. We're constantly evolving, constantly moving, and this is state of the art with a lot of technology.
What's more fitting to have Bob Landgraf's name on this Center for Teaching Excellence, you know?
The district was his baby, period.
And really setting a mark for, you know, how we want to raise our kids, how we want to teach our kids, how we don't give up on our kids. It all goes back to that same teacher who dragged him across the finish line. I think this building is a fitting testimony to him and to that teacher who dragged him.